Dumelang Sanbonani, hello and welcome to Africa Tonight, a window to your continent. I'm Lesego Mokonane. Tonight we continue to place the spotlight on Zimbabwe as the country marks the dawn of a new era. Zimbabwe's former Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa flew home today to take power after the resignation of Robert Mugabe that put an end to 37 years of rule. And speaking to a massive gathering at the ZANU-PF headquarters in Harare, he said that Central Committee and Politburo for constitutionally will resolve issues within the party. He also said that there is a need to cooperate with other countries to build the economy. Taking a dig at the detractors, Mnangagwa said that ZANU-PF will continue to be the party of choice that rules forever, while the detractors keep talking without action. He also thanked the army commander, Chiwenga, for the way it handled the transition.
I think you have heard of or read my letter, which I sent to His Excellency, asking the President Mugabe and say, Mr. President, the people have spoken. You yourself said, if the people say I must step down, you shall comply. This is the time to comply. The G4 cabal had captured the executive in the person of our president. Orders were now coming not from the executive, from people outside the executive to implement in government and to run government. But the people of Zimbabwe yourselves have refused. Exactly 16 days ago, I received a letter firing me from government of the Republic of Zimbabwe as Vice President. Within 2 hours, I was informed about plans to eliminate me. Realizing that on the 12th of August this year, I was subjected to poisoning, which resulted in my being airlifted to South Africa. And again, I thank you, the people of Zimbabwe, for your prayers that I survived. The people of Zimbabwe, you who are gathered here to receive me, may I say, in the name of our Lord, I thank you for receiving me. I feel so humbled that we have remained here until this hour at our headquarters, waiting for me, that you see me and I see you.
Now further joining me in studio is Mako Machona, President of the African Democrats. He is in studio. We also have Tino Mabeo, social political commentator, and welcome to you, gentlemen. Thank you very much for coming. We did have some discussions, of course, throughout the week, and now Mnangagwa is said to be sworn in on Friday. We saw a whole lot of processes going through the protests on Saturday, and we also had the impeachment that was taking place, and then we obviously saw the resignation via letter from Mugabe. What is your reaction on this? Let me start with you.
Okay, I think my reaction is I'm still in a moment of jubilation. I still feel that the country is eventually out of the hands of Mugabe. I describe Mugabe as the man that has taken Zimbabweans for fools for a very long time. You know, we could not speak, especially here in South Africa, you could not want to answer your phone in Shona or any other language that is not a local language, because that will then make you appear as a Zimbabwean. But I see this is a moment as a moment of redemption, that our people now have got their voice. But we give it to Mnangagwa to say, does he want to become the Gorbachev or does he want to become the Idi Amin? He has got two choices. To do good for the people of Zimbabwe, and he goes down into the history books as a hero that made Zimbabwe a better place. But if he doesn't do that, he can choose to be the bad one. But I want to believe that he's a man who comes with reforms, and is going to reform the country, and the country is going to be back on track. That's the way I see it, and I'm actually very happy for that.
And now, Mr. Machona, we know that you are the president of the African Democrats, but now, how much do Zimbabweans know about Emmerson Mnangagwa? Can he be trusted at this point by Zimbabweans, especially in Harare, since we've been seeing a lot of jubilation and celebrations taking place?
Thank you very much. I think the excitement that we saw yesterday when Mugabe resigned, and also what we see now in the streets, from where I stand, I see a completely different picture. From my friend here, I see Zimbabweans very, very anxious, very fearful. I see Zimbabweans both in Zimbabwe because they know this man for a very long time. They know his history, they know his association, and also his closeness to the outgoing or the former president of Zimbabwe, Mr. Mugabe, and they know him very well, to the point that they are not, you don't see those in diaspora packing their bags right now going home. If you travel around Joburg and elsewhere, you don't see us being excited about the events that are unfolding at the moment. Before I came here, I was given quotations from Mnangagwa, what he was talking about. I didn't hear words like democracy. I didn't hear words like rule of law. I didn't even hear him mention things like free, fair, and credible elections. I heard him very firm that ZANU will rule forever. And those are not statements that sits well with most Zimbabweans. And those are worrisome statements, so to speak. And also the way he came back, you could see that wherever he was, it was safeguarded by the army, and he's 100% supported by the army. And right now what we're seeing is an unfolding situation in Zimbabwe where, yes, people say it wasn't a coup, but now I think for me, from where I stand, it's 100% coup, because from the Constitution, what it says, from what we know about the Constitution, the last person to serve, who was vice president, was President Mboko. He is the one we supposed to be where Mnangagwa is, taking over the remains of where Mugabe left as the acting president or caretaker. So we see Mnangagwa leapfrogging or jumping ahead of Mboko, because right now we don't know what happened to that Mboko, and also I have to bring it to the fore. We see a lot of political prisoners that were taken by the army. We don't know where those people are, and of course they were part of ZANU and part of Mugabe's group that is known as the G40. But when we talk of human rights, already we're seeing the army that's starting to violate human rights from the word go. So that's why you see those in diaspora, yes, they celebrated the outgoing of Mugabe, but at the same time they are not too keen as to the incoming president, which is Mnangagwa, because the way he's coming and the ways that he's using are not very much exciting, and they don't say much about the future as far as the democratic dispensation that we're expecting.
And now I just want you to comment on what he has said. We know that Mnangagwa said that ZANU-PF will continue to be the party of choice that rules forever. He mentioned that some of the words that came from Mnangagwa did not sit well with him. What do you make of that?
Well, before we talk any further regarding that statement, it is very, very important that we understand the fact that when Mnangagwa was speaking today, he was speaking as the president of ZANU-PF, not the president of Zimbabwe. Now he's going to have his own day of inauguration, where he's going to address Zimbabweans. Do not dream ever of any day when Mnangagwa will speak in a manner that betrays his political party. there's never a day that will come. So I think my colleague here is taking it from the wrong perspective. This occasion was not an occasion for the country. It was an occasion designed for the party. The message was meant to speak to the party. It was not a message that has been crafted for the nation. That's number one. Mnangagwa also talks of a new dispensation. I think you could have noticed that. And he talks of a way of doing things in a different manner. And I would want to believe that difference can only be different to what we have been seeing. I wouldn't want to believe that Mnangagwa will then go in and do exactly the same things that Mugabe has been doing. And I want to tell you the problem that we have had in Zimbabwe is that Mugabe is a dictator. And whether you like it or not, dictators have got their own ways of operation. Dictators are never known in history to listen to anybody. They've got a tendency of saying, whatever that I say goes. And to want to think that Mnangagwa had effects, yet decisions that he could take without the blessings of Mugabe, I don't think that. And I would want to believe that the person who has held Zimbabwe back for this long is not Mnangagwa, it is Mugabe himself. And now Mnangagwa comes on the scene, and I would want to see Zimbabweans supporting him in a manner that is quite necessary. But let me refer to the fact that he makes to say that Mpoko has not been considered, or where is Mpoko at the moment? Right. You will understand that ZANU-PF and the army have always been one thing. And we would not want to jump into conclusion to say that now that he has come back, he's going to disown the army. This is the structure that they have built upon. And it is a responsibility of Zimbabweans to make sure that our voices as we go ahead, make sure that the army becomes a separate entity that does not interfere in the political life of the country. But at this moment, it's quite not possible because they have been there. Mugabe has made it that way. And unfortunately, that is the way it is. And we've got to attack the situation in its own context, of which that is what it is. So to say what has happened with Mpoko, within the ZANU-PF constitution, not the country constitution, they are allowed to choose a person that takes over. So I would want to assume that for these past 3 days, it would have been Mpoko that was acting, for this past, from last night when Mugabe resigned, up to the time that Mnangagwa is inaugurated. I would want to believe that that 30-day period where they have got to choose, they have to do it within 30 days. And if they don't do it within 30 days, within their constitution. So I'm thinking that they listen to their constitution, which requires them to choose a new leader within a period of 30 days. And they could then forward that leader to Parliament and all that.
And now we are joined in studio by Brian Bumbi, the president of the Democratic Restoration Party, and Nkosi Konanov, vice president of the Democracy Restoration Party. Welcome to Africa Tonight. A dawn of a new era for Zimbabwe. What do you make of the recent turn of events?
Definitely, we are happy with what happened on the Saturday. It showed unity. It brought down the walls of division. We saw a black man working together with a white man, whether you're colored, whether you're in Ndebele, whether you're Kalanga. We're all one people, one nation, and we had one voice. Yes, this is our first revolution of taking away a dictator that has reigned for the past 37 years. We are happy that we have entered in a new dispensation as Zimbabweans. And now our priority and our prerogative is to remove the system that has been instilled in our society for the past 37 years.
What is the road ahead for Zimbabwe now?
The road ahead right now is to make sure whatever is happening, we are going to channel our energy into having a level ground in terms of the political play in Zimbabwe. Because currently we understand the road to be very clumsy and bumpy. So not until that level, that ground is leveled, then we can talk about progress in Zimbabwe. So right now we are calling for unity of all the people across political divide, across ethnic extractions, just like the Vice President has said. We have seen Zimbabwe doing something that has never done before. And I'm actually saying it wouldn't be a bad thing if even Forbes or Guinness Book of Record to record the events of that glorious Saturday. Because we've seen the police of the country being taken off work completely, and yet the crime rate dropped to 0.
Yeah.
Nobody got hurt, nobody got killed, there wasn't any looting of any shop.
Yes.
So I would like to say that's Zimbabwe for you. Us as DRP, Democracy Restoration Party, that's what we are clamoring for. A well-organized society which has got values and principles that are embedded in our culture to try and enhance life. We realize that before we are any political party, before we affiliate to any particular group in the society, we are Zimbabwean first.
And as DRP, what are your expectations with the new order?
Well, basically, as DRP, Tina City, there need to be reforms before any elections are done. They need to make sure that our 2013 constitution is completely executed. We have situations like the BVR system. There's a whole lot of issues on it, and it needs to be ironed out. According to our petition also, we did state that the BVR system needs to be revisited. We need infrastructure in place. We need audits to be taken. We need to make sure that the servers are working right for the registration of voters. We have always spoke of that the electoral system needs to be reformed in the sense that we have to make sure that there is a level ground for all political parties to participate and let the best men win by merit.
Thank you very much for that. That was Brian Muvumbi, the president of the Democratic Restoration Party, and Nkosi Konanov, vice president of the Democracy Restoration Party. And just coming back into studio, I still have Machona, president of the African Democrats. What are some of the issues that need attention right now in Zimbabwe?
At the moment, we need to be very clear on the way forward. I have a feeling from the African Democrats that whoever is in the transition government, if possible, shouldn't be the same person that will contest when we call for fresh elections, because that person will be at an advantage because they can manipulate the electoral processes. And yes, we expect reforms in terms of security reforms, electoral reforms, media reforms. And at this moment, I don't see all those reforms coming from a person like Nganahwa. He has been part of the system for the last 37 years. Yes, we can expect reforms. We expect a man who could be changed. But it will be those high expectations that I don't think they become a reality. Because reforming those, he will be reforming himself out of the government. And he's a person, when you look at his life history, he has never won constituencies free and fair. He has been standing as an MP in Kwekwe. From there, he moved to another constituency in Mashingo. And for all these years, he has never won proper election himself. So Mugabe is always dusting him from losses, bring him back to government, and Mugabe is always doing him a favor. So he's not a person who can win elections. So it's very exciting to see all these guys who are commenting about expectations from Nganahwa, because he is not a person I think will bring Zimbabwe to democracy. What we want to see right now for the transition government, if Nganahwa is going to be a caretaker, he should just be a caretaker for the next 5 to 6 months and step down, because his age doesn't allow him. Actually, the constitution says when you're above 70, 75, you can't contest. So it's very interesting to see if Nganahwa will start violating all these clauses in the constitution. And also, what will be fair, anyone who is going to run a transition government or transition authority cannot be the same person who is going to contest, because what we know of him, he has been behind the rigging of election in association with the army. Right now, when we speak in Zimbabwe, this is a military government in Zimbabwe, and we should not make no mistake about it. We shouldn't be under any illusion. This is a military government in Zimbabwe. This is a completion of a coup. Yes, it's a soft coup. Some might say it's not a coup, but it is a coup. It has been done as a coup, and right now we see the army completely behind Mnangagwa, and that's a coup.
I want us to take a listen at the ANC, what they have said, that there are elements of a regime change as far as the transition of power is concerned in Zimbabwe. While addressing the media in Johannesburg, ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe questioned the timing of the Western countries offering the help now. Let's take a look.
Process in Zimbabwe. We had a discussion about those processes and discussed and said how to describe those. My own view, once a government is taken over by soldiers, I call it a military coup. Okay, you can use all the nice language, put it nice, it's a military coup. How it is managed, it was managed quite professionally, no death, no shootings, no running over buildings, and to me I think we should commend comrades in Zimbabwe for that. Ours is not to celebrate this or that. We have taken a view that says we must continue respecting Mugabe for the role he played as a freedom fighter. We must continue supporting him for advocating the Africa's development program. We must celebrate him as a Pan-Africanist and the role he played over the last decades. We must also commend the restraint exercised by the people of Zimbabwe in the midst of extremely turbulent and fluid political situation. Our view is that the fact that there was no obvious loss of life, damage to property, there was peaceful protest, to us is quite reassuring. We are hoping that our community in Zimbabwe will rebuild Zimbabwe to its former self.
And now I'm going to turn this to you, Tino, this question that do you believe that there are elements of a regime change?
Well, regime change. I think regime change is a term that has often been misused in Africa. I do not understand from which perspective does the ANC call it regime change at this moment in time. And it boggles my mind as to what extent do they call it a regime change. I understand that there are certain interests by the British, certain sections in Europe, in China and that. But to say that it's regime change to an extent, that really doesn't sit well with me. But what I would like to comment further on is the fact that this process that we saw unfolding in Zimbabwe, it is a two-pronged process, or it's a two-sided process. The other side is ZANU-PF, which is tired of Mugabe and they want him to go. And we also have the people of Zimbabwe who are tired of Mugabe and they want him to go. So there was a convergence of an objective. So when one objective converges, then people have to come together and march and do all that they have done. That is commendable. But what we want to understand now, and what I would like the people of Zimbabwe to understand now, is that we do not really want to be in a position to cast aspersions or to want to preempt the motive of Mnangagwa in all this. And to want to create anxiety amongst the population that has gone through a lot of suffering. What we should be therefore saying is not to preempt him in a way that my colleague is doing, but to say we demand electoral reforms, we demand freedom of association, we demand that there should be money in the banks, we demand that investment must come to Zimbabwe. and also disenfranchising a candidate on the fact that he has led a transitional government. I think that is quite unfair. We want, as Zimbabweans, to be able to look at the major objective. The major objective that the people of Zimbabwe are crying for right now is a proper and functional society where people have got rights, where people have got access to health services, where people have got access to employment opportunities. That is the message that should be carried home. To carry the message that Nganahwa did such and such in 1983, from a political perspective, that is okay. But I do not think that we should create anxiety amongst our people. I urge our people actually to stand up and be united and fight for whatever rights they think they need right at this moment in time. That is why we are going to make sure that we progress as a society. And I want to reiterate the fact that the army has worked with the people in all this. It also leaves a burden on the army side to say, when things do not go the people's way, we, the people, are always going to go back into the streets, and when they stop us, we are going to ask them why is it so this time around? And they've exposed themselves, and we are going to make sure that we take advantage of that as a people.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me in studio. That was Marco Machona, president of the African Democrats, and we also had Tino Maveo, a social political commentator. And before we leave, we just managed to get Audrey Chimwanda, AN7 reporter from Harare. Audrey, Harare seems it is all about Mnangagwa today. Tell us more.
The whereabouts of the former Vice President of Zimbabwe, Emmerson Mnangagwa, were demystified today when he took to the podium at ZANU-PF headquarters, much to the joy of thousands of Zimbabweans who had gathered to welcome back home a man that they have been calling their hero. The former Vice President took the opportunity to thank Zimbabweans for maintaining peace, also to the army services for maintaining stability in the country during a very difficult time. Also taking the opportunity to confirm that he will be inaugurated as the interim president of Zimbabwe come Friday.
And that's all I have for you here on Africa Tonight. From me, Mugabes, and the rest of the team. Salani Gatle.